So Niyati, first of all, thank you so much. I know how much courage it takes to talk about yourself. Hats off to you for whatever you're doing. And thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
No,
So
thank you for reaching out to me.
tell me more about yourself and where you grew up. How did you come to the US and stuff?
I grew up in Mumbai, and I moved to the US when I was 18 to do my undergrad at Ohio State University. I did it in electrical and computer engineering. And after that, that was a long time ago. I moved here just after 9/11, so in 2001. And it was like a really strange environment for international students.
Yeah.
With visas, and like everyone looks at brown people with suspicious look, right?
I can imagine.
But you know, I had a wonderful time at undergrad. I started working for Caterpillar in Peoria, Illinois. And with CAT, I got an opportunity to go to England for 6 months to work on engine research. And I really wanted to see like the European hub and see what they would do differently. Anyways, it so happened that, you know, I stayed with Caterpillar for about 5 years. And then my husband and I got married at that point, decided to move back to the UK. And I started working for Cummins and Daventry in England. And we stayed there for 3 years, and as fate would have it, I'm back here. So I'm in Columbus, Indiana now. I've stayed here now 6.5, 7 years. And I have my 2 kids here. My son is 6 years old, and my daughter is 3. So that's, in a nutshell, that's me.
Okay. So tell me more about your diagnosis and how did you come to know and what steps did you take when you realized there was something wrong?
So I remember this like every single detail of what happened. It's like sometimes people ask me, did you write it down? I mean, I wrote a book, but did you write it down? I'm like, no, it was so traumatic. You will not forget this. So it was a Sunday night. My daughter was 1 year old at that point, and I was breastfeeding her, and I felt a lump on my left side. I was afraid that it would be like a plugged milk duct, and it could be mastitis, and those things are really painful, and you have to take antibiotics. And I just want to, you know, make sure it doesn't get that bad. So I told my husband, it was Sunday night, I went to sleep. I told my husband on Monday, he said, you know, you should call the doctor. Let's not wait. I called the doctor. They said, can you come on Tuesday? So I came on Tuesday, or I went to the doctors on Tuesday, and they checked it, and they said that, oh, don't worry, it's, you know, it's not cancer, first off, right off the bat. And they said, because most cancers are pea-sized, you know, really small, and they're kind of rigid, they're hard. My lump was kind of squishy and movable. You could like move it. So they said it's sort of like a plug milk duct, but we can't tell what it is till we do like an ultrasound, and then we'll figure it out. So they scheduled me for an ultrasound on Thursday. The same day, the radiologist said, no, you need to get a mammogram right now. So I got a mammogram, and I thought these people were crazy because I argued with them. I said, look, I have very dense breasts because I'm breastfeeding right now, and the mammogram might come up with false positives, right? So like I don't want to do it. And they said, no, we highly recommend it. So I did the mammogram. That same day on Thursday, the mammogram results, they read it to me right away, and they said, you have one of two things. A massive infection, B, cancer. And the chances of being infection or cancer are 50-50. So the only way to find out is to do biopsy. It's like, okay, it's not cancer, right? It's just an infection. This is the United States. They're going overboard over nothing, right? I had all my prejudice and bias all in line saying that they're just billing the insurance company what they're, and when they, I said, okay, when can I have the biopsy? And they said, oh, we're pretty booked today. So, and then the radiologist is on vacation for a week. So the week after. And I'm like, no, I can't wait like 10 days trying to figure out if I have an infection or cancer. Like that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But no, please, you have to get me today. And they said, are you willing to wait? I said, as long as it takes. And my husband was with me. So we just waited in the waiting room. But that same day on Thursday, they did my biopsy, which was extremely painful. We'll talk about it another day. And then Friday, 2nd of March, 2018, at 11:10 a.m., I called the breast health center. and the lady sounded really pleasant and sweet. She's like, "Oh yes, hi, yeah. Let me pull it up. Yes, your results are in. All 3 sites have tested positive for cancer." And I mean, I just couldn't believe it. Even just the delivery of like, wouldn't you kind of be like, okay, I need to talk. You say something that the person is prepared for bad news. She sounded so pleasant, and so when you talk about diagnosis, right, there are several situations where either women will put off a lump or they're too afraid to go, or it's a scheduled mammogram and they're like, yeah. Mine was, I did not ignore anything. I detected it on a Sunday. I had that Friday, within 5 days, I had the results and I had cancer. It was beyond like imaginable, the shock that we were in. And the biopsies they had done also confirmed that it had spread to the lymph nodes. So I knew already my staging was going to be pretty aggressive and the cancer was aggressive. And then the rest you know, but that's how I was diagnosed.
Okay. And so how did the treatment process go? I mean, you had so many things on your plate to handle: work, kids, and apart from that, of course, yourself, your mental health. So how did you take care of all that?
So I'm very much into like, I need to be organized. And when I felt like I was losing control of my life because everything was being decided for me, I wanted some control, some semblance of my life is still mine. And so I made a spreadsheet of a list of people that I could call on, friends and family. And then I put them into buckets, like this person will help me with childcare because they have young children. This person is single, maybe I can have him or her help me with some groceries, especially Indian groceries because they don't get delivered, right? Kroger.
Yeah.
And then I had a couple of work friends that one of them I said, hey, can you sort out all the insurance stuff? Like I can't, I couldn't think, right? I was in overdrive where I had to sort out everything in my life and still go for treatment and still be a mom to two very young children. So I needed all the help I could get. And that realization right there made me so bold about speaking about cancer. And you're Indian and you may know some of this, or it all depends on the family, right? Maybe your family is different. As far as my family and my experience of cancer growing up in India is that you don't say the C word. You don't utter it out loud because it's bad omen, right? If you say cancer is bad. You don't say breast because that's a female body part, right? And all of this is so childish because let me tell you, if it ever happens to somebody, say you love, or your best friend or somebody close to you, the words breast and cancer is going to be the least of your worries. Your worries is going to be, oh my God, my friend has it. What can I do to help? So why do we waste time with things like don't say the C word, or, I know doctors back home where when they're giving the news, they say CA breast, CA cervical. And it's like, what the hell is CA?
What does that mean?
Sick. So if the doctor himself or herself, who's so highly educated, cannot say that, what's the chance that you and I will feel comfortable saying it? We're not even in the field. Like when in engineering at Cummins do I ever have to say the word breast? Never, right? So, but I knew when I was diagnosed, I knew the first thing I need to do was tell people because I knew I needed help. And you cannot get help if you don't ask for it. And one of the things was, so that aspect, yeah, can't get help unless you ask for it. And asking for help, you'll be surprised. So many people will come and help you, but you have to take that first step. You have to, and that means being vulnerable, right? Being open, saying things like, I'm scared, or saying things like, I don't know how my kids are going to cope with me without any hair, right? So, but when you say that out loud, that brings that humanity, that we're all vulnerable and it can happen to anyone. That makes you, the relationships you create, you become part of a bigger purpose, right? And people come and help you. And so when you asked about, how did you cope with mental health? Not so good. I was told many times go see counselor, but that's just not, our culture. And so I tried, but it wasn't my thing. I highly recommend it to anyone that is willing. So I'm all for it, just not, so I'm being hypocritical, I get it. And I'm joking because I really did. I went and saw somebody, but it's just not my thing. And so what I found helpful was to write. And that's why I ended up writing that book, because when I was in the during chemotherapy and stuff, no energy, and I worked through chemo, so I didn't miss any days at work. I also traveled to California during chemotherapy, but all my focus was on that. But once work was removed from me because I had my double mastectomy and I couldn't really move my arms, and I couldn't lift my children because the arms are so I could though sit and type. And so those months that for me essentially were dark because I wasn't at work. Work was an excellent distraction during chemo, but now that was taken away from me. So that my mental health coping mechanism was writing. I think everyone, copes differently. People that are really brave and strong go to a counselor and actually get the help. And I tried and it didn't work for me. And I was open. I think I went to 3 sessions, but it just seemed empty. And so I did the writing, and that's what helped me. And the other thing with the mental health, since you asked that question, was I feel like all of this journey would have been really different if I didn't have small kids. So obviously with the younger kids, you have more challenges because they don't understand you're sick. But with the younger kids, it's unconditional love. So when I lost my hair, you think my kids cared one bit? They didn't. Still their amma. They call me amma. I'm still their amma. And so all these little things that, maybe your friends see that you're bald and they feel sad because they know that's not you. Children, they don't see anything. They're like, Amma's here, come on, let's go. And when I would sleep a lot, my son would come and he would like pat my back and say, Amma's tired, right? Amma got an itchy. And he had seen my scars, so he knew I have scars on my chest. And I was like, yeah, it's a little ouchy, but I'll be all those things really helped. Now, take another situation, since you work a lot with cancer patients or survivors and caregivers. Take another situation. If all of this had happened when my kids were, say, 16 and 19, they would be devastated because they can Google everything. They would know everything. My baldness would be traumatic. It would be so different, right? So, yeah, those are some of the things that helped.
So is that when you started writing your book, when you were under?
I started writing after my surgery. So because I was working through chemo, I had no idea that I was going to write a book. I just needed somewhere to vent. But during chemo and all of that, I was busy and tired, right? And then after the double mastectomy, the recovery took about maybe 8 weeks just to even move my arms. And that was really long. But when radiation started, I was in the in-between. So now my arms can move. I can maybe pick up my child, but radiation makes me tired. And radiation was Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. And so for 7 weeks. So like I couldn't work because the day would be shot. Like I had the first session and I would have the first available session every morning. So like maybe 8:30 or something. But there were days I would stay there till noon. And I would be exhausted after that. So the radiation, the in-between period where I have some strength, some mobility, but a lot of fatigue, just gave me these little windows where I started writing. And I didn't write it with the intent of writing a book. I wrote it as my therapy. So that was therapeutic for me, because going to a counselor wasn't. Writing was my therapy. And it was only like in 2019, say in the beginning of the year, that I started thinking, I should write a book. Because I was already writing, right? I was like, I should make that into a book. And but that's it.
Okay. Yeah. So in your book and the TED Talk also, you've talked about the cultural bias and stigma that is associated with cancer. So how did you deal with that? Did you face any bias? And if yes, then how did you deal with that?
Yeah. So bias and stigma, two different things. So with bias, I faced a little bit of it in terms of people kind of thinking, well, she's going to die. So there's no point investing more time in her, which is really brutal, but that's what happens, right? And with the stigma, that's the Indian bit where it was just, are you sure you want to tell people? And so how come you detected it so late? And I thought someone like you, well, you're pretty healthy, you're normally very careful, and it's just like speculating, what happened. So that was a little bit of the stigma. But with this stigma, the one thing I knew is that if I want, forget the help aspect, right? I already talked about why I needed the help and I have to ask for help. But with that shame of like, don't ever say the C word, it's CA, and don't talk about breast cancer, or if you think about it, you'll get it, that kind of stuff. I knew the only way to overcome that is by talking about it. I'm also one of those people where you say, Niyati, don't go do this, I'll go do that.
I do that.
Yeah. So when I started telling people, my own family, and they were like, "Oh, are you sure you want so and so, uncle and aunt and whoever to know?" And I'm like, why would I hide it? Think about it, Hetal. Say you're about to go to work on a Monday, but you have a really bad cold on Sunday night. Wouldn't you just email your manager and say, I have a bad cold? So if you're okay with saying that, older people, right? You find out some uncle or grandpa had a heart attack. Wouldn't you just say, oh yeah, today's really rough. I found out my grandfather at home had a heart attack. So you're allowed to talk about heart attacks, talk about a cold. Say you fall and you break a leg. You're allowed to say, yeah, I was walking, it was icy, I broke my leg. All of that is okay. So why is it that I can't say I have cancer? And at that point, it was present tense. Today I can talk about it as past tense, right? But I just do not understand why you can talk about all of these things, but you can't talk about cancer, right? And so I was like, no, I'm going to tell everyone. And I literally, not only just my friends and family, second and third cousins that I haven't talked to in how many years, I found like I would either email them or text them or whatever and say, look, I've been diagnosed. And the reason I did that twofold. One is because of the stigma bias that we talked about. The other reason I did that was, sorry, I lost my train of thought, was that I have seen so many instances within the Indian community in the United States and also back home in India where people will hide that they have been diagnosed, right? Family will cover it up, Have you ever noticed how ultimately everybody does find out?
Yeah.
Ultimately, it comes.
Yes.
You may not find out the day they were diagnosed, but it might be 6 months down the line. It might just as they're about to die, right? You ultimately find out. And that I did not want. I did not want a bunch of people gossiping behind my back saying, she's got cancer, as if it's a secret. And everyone knows. And I know Indian girls in Columbus that have hidden their disease, and the entire Indian community knows. And I didn't want that. And I feel like you are kidding yourself if you think you can hide a disease like cancer. People find out. So I'm like, you're not going to gossip about me because I'm going to tell you more than that. I'll give you all the details. So detail that you will say, please stop talking. I don't want to know. But the reason, because I don't want people gossiping about, oh, does she get a double mastectomy? Like, oh my God, she doesn't have breast. Like, so I just want to tell everyone. I say it up.
And you wrote a book.
Yeah. And I wrote the book. But that's the thing, right? I'm just going to say it because now who's going to gossip about it, right?
Nobody.
You're going to tell. You're going to be like, yeah, Niyati's crazy. She's been telling everyone herself. And but that's how I coped with it. Everyone copes differently, right? That was just my mechanism. Hiding and keeping it like to myself would just bring more shame. And I was already confused. I don't know why it happened. They did the genetic testing and I was negative on all the genes. So I still don't know why it happened. So I'm dealing with so much like, I don't want to say trauma, but so much like confusion and questions and whys. The last thing I need is to then hide that, have people talk about it because they will know anyway. And so I'm like, no, this is coming from me. I will be your source. I will tell you everything. And I would always say, if you have any questions, just ask because I will tell you. Another thing was when I was bald, I was still getting used to being bald. Nobody gets used to that, not even men. Okay. So, I didn't like the way I looked. So I wore a wig. Obviously, many cancer patients do. And I think it feels nice to kind of look like yourself before you were sick. And I used to wear this short, like bob cut, brownish wig.
Oh,
It was
wow.
cool.
Mm.
Yeah, it was very cool. And so one day at work, a manager, and you've read this in the book, a manager said, "Oh, wow, nice haircut. I haven't seen you in a while." He hadn't seen me. It was because I had stopped going to Seymour. It was just too far for me to drive being sick. And so I said, "No, actually, this is a wig. I'm going through chemotherapy and I've lost all my hair, but I'm not comfortable seeing myself without hair, so I'll wear the wig." And he was just like jaw drop, because that is not what you expect when you're complimenting somebody for their haircut. And 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 it wasn't meant to shock him. It was just that eventually I wanted to get to the point where I don't wear the wig, right? Because this is my reality. And I did. I got to the point where I didn't wear a wig, went to Kroger, went everywhere bald, because Hetal, what am I going to hide, right? Do I look beautiful bald? No, everyone looks hideous. Any woman will tell you that they feel horrible. But hiding under the wig, that's just another facade. And when I came clean to my kids, I'm like, if they can handle it, like I need to own it, right?
And you
But it
don't
was
need to care, right?
yeah, don't need
Yeah.
to. But it was a process. I'm not saying it was overnight. That's why I wore the work, right? It was a process. The other thing I did a lot was like, so I would go bald, but I would wear like really big earrings,
Yes.
really jazzy. Even at work, I didn't care, right? Like just massive earrings. And so that was my distraction. So I was like, okay, now I've gotten to the point where I'm comfortable not wearing a wig, but I still don't feel good. I don't like the way I look in the mirror. And I don't feel feminine, right? We have long hair. That's part of our femininity. So I used to wear massive earrings too. And so it was a journey. I learned a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So looking back, is there anything that you would like you think that you would have done differently?
Um, yeah, I think when people say things like it's just boobs, that's a very American thing to say. Indian people wouldn't say boobs. And it's just breasts, and you're more important. Another friend said, "Oh, I'm so sick of mine. They're so large. They can have mine. I don't even want them." Right? When they make those comments, I know they're being encouraging, but I feel like it kind of tries to lessen my pain. It's like, no, but what I'm feeling is a loss of my identity. And actually, it's not just breasts. And if you were in this situation, you would feel the same sort of devastation. And my favorite doctor, Dr. McMullen, my radiation oncologist, point blank said, it's an amputation. That's what you would call if any other part of your body was cut off, right? And so, yeah, just like I I think I stood up for myself, every possible way I could, but there were times where I was just too tired to argue. And yeah, I would say, yeah, I guess it's just breast, but it's not just breast. And I also completely truly believe that attitude is different, because when I was diagnosed, I was 34. I would feel differently if I was 65, for example. And that doesn't mean that 65-year-old women don't need breasts, but that means at 65, if you say, okay, I'll do double mastectomy because that extends my life and that, all these things, right? You're calculating it as a 65-year-old. You probably have grandkids at this time, right? At 34, that's kind of unfair. And I know, because of my age now, I know many young survivors. And so there's women I know that are 26 and they had it and they took both breasts off. So can you tell a 26-year-old it's just breasts? I wouldn't, because I had my kids and breastfed and I had the opportunity to breastfeed. This 26-year-old has no children, right? She's never going to breastfeed, right? And so no, it's not just breast, but it depends on your phase of life, where you are, if you're grown, mature, so many things, right? So it's a couple of things. I think maybe educate people more, make them more aware, or just say, use a bit of empathy. Like, you don't understand what I'm going through, so don't try to trivialize it by saying, "No, it's nothing."
Yeah. Okay. And that my next question is related to that. If I see a cancer patient, what are some of the things that I should tell him that will make him feel better? Or I know you in your book also you have mentioned that there were people close to you who passed statements and you did not like them. So how should we behave with people who are going through the treatment and
Yeah.
who are fighting cancer?
So, this question is so good because the answer is really simple. If you find out somebody has been diagnosed, like they tell you, right? So no, this is not third party, it's not gossip. Somebody comes, says, yeah, I've been diagnosed. Simple, just say, I am so sorry to hear that. And say it like you mean it, right? Don't say, oh, I'm sorry, right? Sorry to hear that. And then the next line should be, is there anything I can do to help? And just leave it at that. Don't ask questions, because if it's somebody like me, trust me, I'll tell you everything. I'll be like, oh, I've been diagnosed as stage 3, it's left-sided, it's in my lymph nodes, I'm going to double my stuff. I'll tell everything, right? Because in this kind of scenario, Hetal, you'll only find one of two people. One is like me, sharing all of the details. The other is the one who hides the disease and doesn't tell anyone. So if you found out about the person who's hiding the disease, then that would be a rumor and gossip. So then you can't approach them. If you find out from me, who myself, I'm volunteering the information, trust me, the floodgates are open. I would tell you everything, right? So simple, I'm so sorry to hear that. Is there anything I can do to help? That's it. And people won't be as organized as me, won't actually ask for help, but they might start telling you things like, yeah, I can't believe I've been diagnosed, or I'm sad, or I'm scared, and you just listening to that, like just hearing them out, no judgment, don't say anything, don't say it's just breast, just listening is so cathartic. Like right there, it's like, okay, she hears me. You won't have the answers, because guess what? I don't either, and I'm the one who's been diagnosed, right? But yeah, you can talk about it, and that helped me a lot when people just listen.
Talking without any judgment.
Yeah, talking without any judgment, and and speculation, like did you miss these symptoms because you were breastfeeding?
Victim blaming.
Yeah, victim blaming. It's like, no, it is not your place. And the biggest thing for the US especially, which I spoke about in the TED Talk, is that if you find out somebody that has had lung cancer, don't ask them if they're smokers. And this lung cancer is actually quite common with the farms around here. And so a lot of cancer patients were at the Columbus Regional have lung cancer, but they're not smokers. But here's my flip question to you. For example, Hetal, you and I know each other for a long time. We're best friends. I've been diagnosed with lung cancer, for example. And let's just say I'm a smoker. Let's just assume I've been smoking. Does that mean that I deserve to suffer? Like, there are people that have all kinds of vices. Too much eating, obesity is bad for right? Too much drinking is bad. Eating a lot of red meat is bad. There's all these things, right? So what gives us that pedestal that, well, I am better, and since you've been smoking,
you deserve this.
Yeah. So nobody, trust me, I've been through the treatment. Nobody deserves it. Now, you can understand, don't be reckless with your life. But if somebody's been diagnosed, keep your high horse for another situation. This is not the time, because, yeah, we don't know what causes it. We just have very good risk factors, right, that we know about. So
how are you giving back to the community? I know you've written a book, you've given a TED Talk as well. What else you're doing to educate people out there?
Yeah. So one of the things is I go to the cancer center a lot, because I know the caregivers now, and they will either recommend my book, or they will find a patient, especially if they're Indian, and ask them, would you be willing to speak to somebody? And so I go to the chemo center, and I will speak to survivors and tell, just check on them and how they're doing, and also, give out my cell phone number and be like, here, contact me, and da. So in the past couple of years, what has happened is I have come to know a lot of people that are undergoing treatment, both in Columbus, but like all over the US. So there was a lady that contacted me from Houston. She had read my book. I've never met her. I don't know her. Her name is Gabby. And she contacted me saying that I read your book, and it's so eerie because I've been just diagnosed. This was last year. And she said that my situation is the same as yours. I'm a young mother. I have 2 young kids and da da da. And Gabby and I, we still talk. And she, in fact, is writing a book in Spanish because she's from Mexico. And she said, just the way my book, I donate all the proceeds to American Cancer Society, she's going to donate all her proceeds to St. Jude's, the Children's Cancer Center. So a lot of my outreach has been anecdotal. So just the way you heard about me from Devika, the Indian community has actually helped spread my name a lot. So I find out more and more about Indian women that have been diagnosed. So that's a real struggle. And then the book has helped with people that I don't know, I've never met. I had another case of a Brazilian girl. She's not diagnosed, she's fine, she's safe. But a close friend of hers was. And also at Cummins, because of the Cummins Connect article and things, I've had just random people throughout the company send me emails and notes. So it feels good, but it also feels like I can try to make a difference, right? And the rest of it is, so the book so far I have made or earned 800 some dollars on it. And that was the last check that I wrote to American Cancer Society, maybe in February or March, for the whole amount, $800. And then I wait like 6 months or so, collect all the royalties and donate. I plan to do that. And in the future, what I really hope though is more of like a pedestal and opportunity to talk where the topic is really taboo. The US gave me all this opportunity to write this book and to be on the TED Talk, but am I really making a difference in India, right? I don't think so. Am I making a difference in the communities where it's really shunned and you're not supposed to speak? I don't know how African American community deals with it, right? And when I did my TED Talk, I had an African American gentleman come up to me and he said that, my mother had it and she faced a lot of, the stigma and isolation. She couldn't tell anyone about her disease. So that was one isolated incident of this man approaching me. But I know I can make a difference in the other communities as well, right? So I need to do more of this. But having a good network within Cummins, LinkedIn, all these things, really help because random people will contact me saying, I know of somebody, or do you mind if reaches out to you? And I'm like, I want to paste my phone number, just call me. I'll be here to listen because I want to ask any question. I'll just listen, So that's what I'm trying to do. And I want to do more of it.
All right. That was really helpful. I'm sure a lot of people are going to benefit from this talk. And I also know a couple of people who have fought breast cancer and they don't want to talk about it, like you said. But I'm sure it will help people to go out there and ask for help if they need it. So that was really helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. No, it was really good to talk to you. Thanks for doing that.